who is really a perfect fit for a team that has two really awesome distributors and scorers like Chris Paul and James Harden, and then a bunch of really good supporting pieces. And yet, because Golden State has four anywhere from stars to superstars, Golden State is going to be a heavy, heavy favorite in this series.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm excited for this series because we get to see the best team in the NBA this year, and with, like you said, Chris Paul's one of the best point guards of all time. And then, James Harden, who's easily the MVP this year, go up against, the Curry, who's finally back healthy, Kevin Durant. I mean, if you talk about an all-star game as a playoff game, that's essentially what this game is, this series is. Yeah. And I'm really excited to see, because I really think it is a toss-up. I probably will lean more on the side of experience in the Golden State Warriors. I think they'll end up pulling it out. But I could see the series going easily to 6 or 7 games. I mean, no team is a slouch. Even in Houston, you got guys like Capella, Trevor Ariza. I mean, you got these guys that are there that can make the difference in the series depending on the depth, because I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think the depth is where, and guys coming off the bench is where the trenches is going to be, and where they're going to really find out who's going to end up winning this series. I'm excited. It's hard for me to predict it because, like I said, I lean more with Golden State because they have the experience and they have one of the best two of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
But I never want to knock out Houston. I mean, the only thing that Houston doesn't have going for them is really the fact that every single time they seem to be in this position, they get knocked out. And they can never get across that hump, never take that next step. But we used to say the same thing about a Golden State Warriors team that was exactly the same way, 5-6 years ago, and now look at them. Now they're the precedent. So I think it's going to be a really good series, really back and forth. I would like to say, I'm going to, like I said, go with Golden State, but I think it's going to be a tough matchup. I really do.
Yeah, I hope I'm going to agree with you. I hope that it becomes a really good series and it goes 6 or 7 games and a lot of close 130 to 127 games, 120 to 119, that type of game. There's just something sinking in me that says the Warriors are just inevitable at this point. I put out on Twitter a couple days ago, I said over-under for Warriors losses from, the rest of the playoffs here on out, 2.5 games. Like, if they only lost 2 games the rest of, the Western Conference Finals and Finals, I can't say I'd be shocked, because just the way they play when Steph Curry is in there, it really seems like, unless the other team is otherworldly, which, hey, Houston could be, if they have Steph in there spacing that court, and with his threat of shooting up to 30 feet better than anyone in the world, and Kevin Durant being probably the second best player in the league, Klay Thompson being an amazing shooter and defender, and Draymond Green with everything he brings, it's just, I don't know if there's any other team, maybe even ever, that could contend with a top 4 like that. And granted, James Harden, like I said, will be the MVP. Chris Paul is still an awesome player, and there is a ton of really good role players: Trevor Ariza, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Capella, Ryan Anderson, those guys. There's just something saying to me that, like you said, the experience of Golden State is going to make a difference. The ability for Steph Curry to open up lanes for the rest of his teammates and have them space the floor and have them have their passing ability. And I think the difference between these two teams is what kind of stands out to me. Obviously, they're both really good shooting teams. They both take a ton of threes, but the Warriors are a really awesome passing team. They pass so well between all of them, not just any one or two players. They have guys that are amazing passers for the position, really 1 through 5. Whereas Houston, look, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the rest of the players are selfish, but it's really run by Chris Paul and James Harden. I mean, those are the two guys who are going to be getting a lot of your shots, whether they're shooting the ball or assisting the ball. And they don't have quite the same cohesion as a team like the Golden State Warriors do, and just because the Warriors trust each other so well. So I hope it goes to 7 games, but I think I'm going to go with Golden State in 5. There's something telling me that Golden State is just going to keep that switch going and possibly dominate. Maybe they're 5 close games, but I just see I would be shocked if Houston won the series.
Yeah, I was going to take Golden State in 5 as well. Like I said, there's a chance it could go 6, maybe even 7, but I don't see it. I think, like you said, they have 4 of the top stars to ever be on a team ever. And, if you really break down the roster, it's going to be a good series, but it might not be as competitive as we think. I mean, shoot, it could be a 3-point game, but it's going to always be in Golden State's favor. Yeah. As far as you saying 2.5 games over the remainder of the finals and everything, I'd probably take the over on that, but it's not far behind that. I mean, maybe 3 or 4 games at most.
Sure.
I just don't see how this team, when healthy, doesn't win it all again. And honestly, I know I hate to harp on this again, but we go back a few years ago when the commissioner,
Adam
basically said, not Adam, but
David Stern.
The one before. Thank you, David Stern. David Stern said that LA couldn't get Chris Paul. The Lakers couldn't get Chris Paul because it was unfair. It was making a team too dominant. And we see a powerhouse team like Golden State that's really bad for basketball, in my opinion. So where's the precedent? Where's something like that? Because I think that the fact that the commissioner didn't step up in this situation but did on that, it just doesn't make sense. And now I feel like I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but now this team is too strong that it really makes the whole regular season obsolete, and it makes basketball not as enjoyable to watch. But my tangent aside, this Golden State Warriors team is going to be ridiculous to beat. But if there's any team that can do it, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So let's hope for a good series, Bobby. But we're both picking Golden State in 5. And then really quickly on Boston and Cleveland, I think that is going to be a very good series. Pretty much you can say it is LeBron versus Brad Stevens, just because Brad Stevens, without the top 2 players, Al Horford is a very good player, and they have very good young players in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and just the sudden, not sudden emergence, but really the huge rise of Terry Rozier and all the supporting players they have has just been really fascinating to watch as this year has progressed. And then obviously LeBron James, the best player still in the world. I think this is going to be a very fascinating series. I think this definitely goes at least 6 games. I don't think that Boston has it in them to fall apart like Toronto did. I think they have both the mental capacity and the players to throw at LeBron James and try to slow him down and make him work. And I think Brad Stevens, if he's not the best coach in the league, he's definitely number 2 behind Popovich. And then, LeBron, obviously, with what he can do, is just he will keep his team in a game with anyone, no matter what. Even when it's, against the Golden State Warriors, he is still the best player on the floor, and he can still get guys open just by his driving ability and his, shooting ability, and having, 3 or 4 shooters around him. And Kevin Love has been playing his best basketball of the year lately. So I think this is going to be a very good series, but I'm going to go against what you're picking. I think you said earlier you have possibly Boston. I have Cleveland winning in 7 games, and I have a rematch in the NBA Finals from last year, or the last 3 years.
For the 30th year in a row.
Yes, exactly.
My head is telling me to pick Cleveland.
Yeah.
My heart is telling me to pick Boston. I'm going to go with my heart on this one.
Okay.
I think Boston's going to win. Like I said, I think it's going to go about 6 games.
Okay.
But I can't imagine seeing for a 4th straight year Cleveland versus Golden State. It's just so bad for basketball. And it's one thing if one team gets there every year. It's another when 2 of the same teams get there every year, because like I said, makes the regular season so obsolete and so ridiculous. I think it'd be good for basketball if Boston gets there, and I like their players, so I'm going to go with Boston in this one.
All right, well, there you go. If you want to go with your head or with your heart, you got to pick that and choose who you're going to think is going to win, and put some some gummy bears on. Maybe go to Vegas and put that down. All right, Bobby, we're going to take a break. When we come back, you want to do NFL or do you want to do UFC?
You pick, man.
All right. When we come back, we'll do one of those 2 topics, so stick around and find out. We'll be right back. This is The Goods with Alex Klepper and Bobby Goodsby.
Let's go, LP! Huh? Champ! What we gonna do, Nick?
You're listening to Kleppin' the Goods
on Spreaker Radio.
I'm up at midnight, I'm dipping off in my knees like a gun on a metal piece. I've been this life is to my wrist side.
Hi there, Alex Klepper from Kleppin' the Goods here. Seeing as how Bob and myself are just getting this whole thing started again, we thought we'd reach a hand out to you across the interwebs, unfurl that hand slowly yet assuredly, and slowly caw into your ear. Got any change, bruh? Now see, Bobby and myself are both hard-working men, but this is still a hobby. And you know, maybe one day we'd like it to be a little bit more? Well, that's where you come in, my friend. If you or your business is looking to get your name out there to the millions of Kleppiacs and Goodsians out there, now is your chance. Shoot me an email at abklepper@gmail.com or reach out to me on Twitter and let's talk business. Cool? Cool. Now, back to Kleppin' the Goods on Spreaker Radio. All right, Bob, we are back here on The Goods. Alex Klepper, Bobby Goodsby, working away to the middle of the hour, the bottom of the hour, I guess, in news parlance, 8:30. Bobby, since we had that kind of blood in the water song going, bring us back, let's do some UFC. UFC 224, Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington is this Saturday night from Rio de Janeiro. A 5-fight main card. We're going to preview those 5 fights. And as always, started from the bottom. Now we hear.
No, yeah.
That's right. Very, very current reference still. It is still the top song in the nation. So luckily for us, that Drake has been able to keep that going. I think Drake might be more famous now for Fortnite than he is for singing, but
yes.
we'll get into that maybe at some other time. Bobby,
a Toronto Raptors fan.
Yes, and being a Toronto Raptors fan. Bobby, we still need to play Fortnite.
You
together.
are just so far behind at this point.
I know.
I've given up on you even ever playing because I'll just dominate.
Well, the last time I saw you online, because I added you under my new name now, you were playing God of War. So I'm like, oh, great. He's already moved on. And you seem to confirm that when you were playing, you said you were playing God of War earlier before the show. So I don't know. Maybe it's passed you by. Maybe you're a little too old to the trigger finger. Maybe you're like David Price, who is attributing or who is not attributing his elbow injury or his carpal tunnel syndrome to his Fortnite habit, but he says he might cut back in the game anyways.
Hey, just because I took a little break from Fortnite doesn't mean I've given up. You need to give it a shot, and then I'll show you how dominant I can be.
All right, well, this weekend, Bobby, if you have time, I have time, so we'll see what happens. All right, Bobby. So the first fight on the main card for UFC 224, again, in Rio de Janeiro, a big matchup between two legends of the sport. Vitor, the Phenom Belfort, 26-13 with 1 no contest, facing Lyoto, the Dragon Machida, 23-8 in a middleweight division fight. Two legends, again, of the octagon, of mixed martial arts, two Brazilians. So it's going to be a very fun atmosphere, I'm sure, between these two aging fighters, but still very good fighters in their own right. Vitor Belfort, it is his retirement fight, although he has said in the last couple of days he doesn't want to call it retirement, which is kind of strange. He said, when you retire, you're still earning money, so I don't want to say I'm retired because I'm just not going to fight anymore, which I don't know. Vitor doesn't make much sense many times. Maybe it was a translation error, but Vitor, that doesn't make a ton of sense. It sounds like you're retiring, bro. Vitor is 2-3 with 1 no contest, which was pretty much a loss. Since the start of 2014, he was knocked out Dan Henderson in November 2015. Then he was TKO'd by Jacare Souza in the first round in May 2016. TKO'd by Gegard Mousasi in round 2 in October 2016. TKO'd by Kelvin Gastelum in the first round last year, but that was overturned because Kelvin Gastelum tested positive for that huge performance-enhancing drug marijuana. And then in his last fight, just under a year ago, he won a unanimous decision over Nate the Great Marquardt, which was Nate Marquardt's last fight. So Vitor, obviously, past the 40 years old mark, this is going to be what he says his